Welcome, everyone. I'm Barbara Call, Global Director of Content Strategy with CIO Marketing Services. I'll be your moderator today for this webinar brought to you by CIO, Cognizant, and Google. I'm joined today by two expert guests. First up is Tia Eady, Vice President and Global Head of Architecture and Studio Innovation at Cognizant. Welcome, Tia. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, how are you? My name is Tia, as Barbara mentioned, and I've been at Cognizant a long time, probably for 20-something years. And I started my interest in technology when I was a little girl, probably in elementary school, and really liked to work on Matchbox cars versus play with dolls. So that was my entry into this.
That's awesome. Nice to have you here. And my
Thank you.
second speaker is John Bacon. He's Senior Cloud Solutions Architect at Google. Welcome, John. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Barbara. So John Bacon, I'm a solutions architect at Google, working closely with partners like Cognizant. I've been at Google for almost 8 years, and similar to Tia, my interest in technology started when I was, much younger. Playing video games, getting my first computer, and things like that.
That's great. Nice to have you, John. All right, so let's jump into our conversation. All right, my first question, which I'll ask to Tia first and then John. What are some of the different ways that Gen AI and Agentic AI can help organizations? Tia?
Sure. I mean, if we think about, I started my career at Digital Equipment Corporation way, way back when people thought, Ken Olsen specifically said that nobody needs a desktop, their own computer. Everyone needs an alpha server. So we're a long way from that, right? And when I think about the environment and how complex the environment is, we're really looking at how do we make this simple? How do we make things talk to one another in order to accomplish what we want it to? Whether that's putting out new products, being able to use the technologies to virtually try on glasses or outfits, like all of the things that we think about today. It's really important for all of these pieces of technology to talk to one another. So when we think about how do we look at AI, we're looking at how do we use it for effort savings, right? So we can look at the way operations happens, and we can take the time away from doing the day-to-day grunt work to really looking at investing in innovation, investing in time, finding out how we can use the technology for this. It also enables us to have safer environments, right? When we're building code, having the repeatable assets that we have there and looking at how do we solve problems in the past, ensuring that we continue to do that as we're developing new products and releasing new products. And third, I think speed to market, right? If I think about how quickly we want things to happen now, how instantaneously we want to order something and have it at our door in the next 4 hours, I see how we want our products and things to really respond as quickly as possible. And if we give feedback, we want those products to now incorporate that feedback. So if we look at, how technology, Gen AI, Agentic AI, all of those things, it really helps us respond to all of those things quicker.
That's great. John, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, 100% agree with everything that Tia said. I like to think of it also as, what is generative AI? What is agentic AI? We've been talking about AI and ML for 20 plus years, and these are topics within AI that have gained a lot of steam lately. And so when I think about it, Gen AI, it's everywhere. We've been talking about it for the last few years. It's become very mainstream, which I think is interesting. It's not just popular within the tech community. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's using it. It's becoming a part of really almost everyone's lives. And so when we look at that versus, this year seems to be the year of AI agents, right? I see a lot of different software companies coming out. They're incorporating agents into their products. At Google, it's the same thing. We have a lot of agentic AI products out there that are very helpful to customers. So I kind of like to think about how do they differ? What do we use different types of AI for? And, obviously, how can they benefit me or the company that I'm working for? And so when I think of Gen AI, I think of it as being, typically it's reactive, right? You ask it to do something for you, and then it's going to do it. This could be asking a chatbot to write your resume or generate a picture or an image of something. And I think as consumers, we've all done this, right, to some extent. I've asked AI to write songs for me and create beats for those songs just because I was curious if it could do it. And it does. It does it really. It's pretty amazing. However, when we talk about enterprises, right, Gen AI can really help employees become more efficient, right? It can help create new revenue streams. And since we're talking about modernizing today, one thing that we see with Gen AI, it's being used to help developers build applications, and it's being used to help engineers and architects build the infrastructure used to host those applications. And so, one example that we talk about at Google is we have a coding assistant. It's called Gemini Code Assist, and with tools like this, developers can become, much more productive. They can use these tools to generate code, to explain code they're unfamiliar with, to refactor it to be more efficient, right? Or debug the code, test the code. And so what ends up happening is you have developers that are more productive. They're completing tasks quicker with, less errors, less bugs. And then you have this overall benefit of, accelerating your software development lifecycle. And um, that could mean faster time to market, increased revenue, and so many other things. And this is just one tool within, a sea of Gen AI tools. And then when we look at things like AI agents, I like to think of them as doers, right? Gen AI is a creator; it creates things for you. Agents go out and they do things. They're more proactive. They're goal oriented. And so we've seen a lot of agents out there for, your HR systems, your CRM tools, products like Google Drive or other storage products, calendars and emails. And so they can really help as well because they can string a lot of things together. So you could have an agent go into your CRM system. It could search for qualified leads from your customers. It could compare those leads to, customers' purchase history, and then create emails and reach out to customers on your behalf. So it's truly automating a lot of tasks. Whereas when we look at some of the benefits from Gen AI, it's helping with efficiency. It's helping with like new revenue streams, and there's just so much more out there that we're still going to see in the coming months and years.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit, and I know the questions lead into this, some of the things that we're doing together, right? And it's amazing, talking about like Gemini and Flowsource and all of the, agent Neuro AI, which is our agentic AI system that we partnered with Google with. And we'll talk about some of the, client use cases that we've actually done. So I think it's exponentially we'll see the growth exponentially over the next year, 18 months.
Yeah, I love that. So, Tia, let's drill into the question about leveraging Gen AI in any phase of the software development lifecycle. How do you see that? What do you envision?
Well, as I mentioned, right, really, we really want to ensure that we empower our developers or engineers, right, to do what they're here for, and that's develop code, right? We really want to ensure that we reduce the noise, we create an environment that's simplified for them, um, and really remove all of the mundane tasks that they have to do, as well as trying to find out and remember where uh, either the repository is or what the code is or what tools we use, right? Because now it's multi-layered now today. And so really what we've created this platform called Flowsource, right? And it really takes the journey from creating epics and stories, right, using our PDLC assistant all the way through the development cycle, which we use Gemini. Gemini is one of our core technologies in there, on top of our prompt library, which now allows the prompting to be standardized, right, for that particular client, respond, right, and provide them with this repeatable code that they can use to now go through the next set of things where we're talking about your testing, right, QA, QE, deployment, right, automated deployment, and then of course once it's deployed, how secure is your environment, right? have a lot of disruptions within your environment. And using our platform called Flowsource, we now provide that visibility across the board, not only to the engineers, but other personas as well, right? The program manager, the QA person, the SRE person, right? The SDETs. How do I now get in here and see how well this particular product went from inception all the way through to production, right? The real key there too is simplified operations, accelerating change throughout the client, being able to now identify what the core products are that you want to build, right? And what that ROI is, and really look at productivity gains, cost savings, um, in a well-managed environment, right? So it's really key, I think, that we look at across the SDLC, what are the areas that our engineers are having trouble, and what are the areas that we can respond very quickly to. So Flowsource is our go-to-market, and we use it in hundreds of clients today. And we've seen significant, I guess, operational benefits, simplification, and advantages.
That's great. It kind of leads into my next question for John. So, understanding how well things are working is critical to ensuring organizations are making the right investments. So, what metrics or frameworks do you suggest to help assess the ROI of implementing AI?
Yeah, so this is definitely an important question. However, unfortunately, there's not just one correct answer because before we start, trying to calculate the ROI of using these tools or the effectiveness of these tools, we kind of need to understand why are we using them in the first place, right? Typically, we're trying to solve some sort of problem that AI can help with, or we're trying to create some sort of benefit from using these tools. And so whether we're trying to solve a problem or create that benefit, um, it's really easy to get kind of caught up in all of the excitement around AI. So we want to make sure that we're utilizing these tools in a way that's beneficial to our company. It's beneficial to the users, right? We're addressing business or technical challenges and needs. And just on a side note, that's why I like working with partners like Cognizant, right? Because we can go in there and we can identify the use cases. We can even run POCs to test them, but I think that's a conversation for later. Um, but when we want to look at these metrics, we want to measure ROI and effectiveness. We need to figure out what the tools are, what the benefits are. Couple examples we gave already. We talked about coding assistance, right? So there's a lot of metrics out there that we would want to look at to measure the effectiveness of a coding assistant. There's productivity metrics. So things like lead time for changes, which is a DORA metric, which is the DevOps research and assessment. It's essentially saying the time from your first code commit to successfully running production. That's a really important metric we would look at. There's the time for developers to complete tasks. These are just a couple examples around productivity, but then there's also things like code quality, right? There's metrics that we would want to look at, examine the failure rates of our code, bug density, measure if we're testing more. And then honestly, I would want to look at things like developer experience or just user experience in general, right? What's the adoption rate of the tools that we're implementing and that we're taking advantage of? Are the users actually using them? If not, that's a negative indicator. So these are just a few examples of metrics that we would look at when we're using an AI tool designed to help developers. But if we're evaluating a tool that does something completely different, like helps increase revenue, then there's going to be so many other indicators and metrics that we're going to want to evaluate there, right? We're going to want to look at conversion rate from AI generated campaigns and emails versus the human created content. Want to measure the quality and quantity of qualified leads from AI chatbots and campaigns. There's so many different things out there that we would want to measure. And again, it all comes back to what's the problem that we're trying to solve and what's the benefit that we're trying to achieve from these tools. And then you can figure out what those metrics are, and then you can calculate that ROI.
Yeah, we're definitely growing past the DORA, just velocity, right? Or mean time to commit. And so I definitely agree, John, that going forward, we'll need to really look at what is the ROI? What are we trying to do? What do our executives need to see? Right. And John definitely talked about a lot of those metrics that will be critical for us going forward.
All right. Good stuff. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about what technologies or areas do you see that we should watch out for? So, John, let's start with you.
Sure. One thing that I think is really interesting. It's not something that's coming, but it's something that's already here. I think it first arrived in the fall of last year, and it's been gaining a lot of steam. Is something called MCP, or Model Context Protocol, and this is important because before MCP, our AI systems and our tools were essentially limited to the data they were trained on. Right. So if I have let's say a chatbot, and I train it on a bunch of data, and then a year later, I'm asking that chatbot questions about something where the answers probably needs to be a little more recent. It's not going to be able to help me, right? It just doesn't have that information available to it because it's been trained on older data. And so what MCP does is it's actually an open standard that acts as this kind of universal adapter to allow large language models and other AI systems to go out and connect securely to external data sources and external tools. So what ends up happening is you have this AI tool that's trained on all your data, but it also has the ability to go out and find new information from additional sources. And the reason I think this is something that we need to watch out for, at least keep tabs on, is because we're taking a technology, right, Gen AI, Agentic AI, that already has a lot of use cases, very beneficial use cases, many use cases that we probably haven't even thought about yet. And it's taking those tools and it's just making them more powerful, right? It's making them more adaptable. It's opening them up to more capabilities. So I'm really excited to see how this technology is incorporated into existing tools, and see the benefits that we get out of those in the future.
All right. Thank you, John. Tia, you tell us what are some of the technologies or areas that we should watch for?
Yeah, before I go into the question, I just wanted to comment briefly on John's comment on MCP. And the other thing I wanted to just highlight is it's going to be important to ensure we don't have biases built in the data and the responses, right? So it's going to be MCP is going to be really important to bring in, you know, diversified data sources, responses, right? And so the technology is learning and growing, but it's only being taught by the data that it's fed. So if the data is biased that goes in, of course it's learning and growing using those same sets of data and biases. So it's really important that we're able to provide updated information, updated data sets, things like that to ensure that we have a well-rounded and safe, model as we grow more reliant on the technology, right? We want to make sure that it's um, representative of all of the data sets. So I just wanted to comment on that because I don't want to lose. I want us to ensure that we're building safe environments as well.
And that's extremely important. I think that's a great call out, Tia. That's one of the challenges we have, right? If
Right.
you have bad data and people are going to start believing it, and then you're going to train new AI systems on the bad
Right.
data that other AI systems are producing, and it's this endless cycle. So
Right.
ensuring that it's quality data, it's not biased, is very important when we talk about all of these tools.
Yeah, definitely. So Barbara, so I guess the question you asked was about our partnership, right?
Mhm.
So I was just at Google Next earlier this year. It was phenomenal. It was electric, right? So just thinking about, how we work together, the number of clients that we go to, just some quick facts, right? Our partnership, and I have them written down, so I'm going to look. We have over 7,000 GCP certified professionals. We have about 2,100 professionals across the board in all technologies, right? So that was 7,000 GCP and then over 21,000 altogether. We serve about 150 plus clients together that we go to that we serve jointly. And then we provide a wide range of services to help them navigate, digital business journeys. We look at the unique approach as well as ongoing innovation. And then how can we upskill our own talent to meet those demands, right? So it's not just, hey, we put a slide together and say, This is what we're going to go to market. This is an evolving partnership that collaborates as the technology changes, as our clients' needs change, right? We look at, data, AI, modernization across the board. When just to name two things, specifically that we, partner on, Gemini Assist that John talked about, we use Gemini Assist for mainframe modernization, right? We take a look at what that process is to modernize from a mainframe to GCP. We look at how we can use the tools to accelerate not only using, GCP, but Cognizant's knowledge of not only the industry and technology. We look at, from a dev, SME, and provide into the feedback loop. How do we go accelerate this using all of those things? And we did a really big uh, POC with Kubernetes, Google Kubernetes as well, that really enhanced the scalability and performance for our clients. Next, of course, is cloud, which is always close to my heart because I have all of the architects, right? All of the cloud architects and application architects. And so this is my bread and butter, right? This is my wheelhouse. And really, we're able to not only look at the developer acceleration, but also how do we move to the cloud? How do we simplify the governance, ensure security and compliance is there? And then, of course, using Flowsource and our other tool, Neuro AI engineering, which builds Agentic AI, pulling that together to now go across the application and cloud portfolio. We have a global, predominantly in the US, but definitely has a footprint globally, retailer that we looked at their entire order system, right? And this is where Agentic AI comes in, as well as the cloud. And we took the order system and we moved it to the cloud. We actually moved it to GCP. We looked at how do we scale when things go on sale, make sure the prices are reflected from the register that the clients see at the store on the sign. And we decreased the time from a purchase order and sale by 60%. We took 25% more orders and then 14% more on the peak days like Black Friday. And then from a system perspective in SRE, it was 99% available, right? So can you imagine on Black Friday if the systems are going down and I can't get my order in and I want that outfit that that everybody wants for your kids, you got to get it, right? You need the system to be up. So these are real world things. When we think about it, they're really impacting our clients and our clients' bottom line. So really excited to, talk about some of those things with John as well.
All right, great. John, tell us, what are your thoughts about Cognizant and Google's partnership and how it helps clients?
Yeah, definitely. I think Tia did a great job of explaining the strength of the partnership between Google and Cognizant. And I think when you have a partnership that's that strong, there's a lot of value that we can bring to our clients, right? So right off the bat, we can work together to identify the use cases, right? We can help customers figure out the tools that we need, the problems that we're trying to solve with those tools, the benefits they're going to get. Um, and then once we figure out that, right, then we need a partner to help with implementation, right? There could be some engineering work. Tia gave some great examples of work that we did with mutual customers. So having a services partner that can take care of that engineering work, that can help with that implementation is going to be very valuable. But one thing that I don't think we've kind of mentioned is onboarding users. So if we're talking about an AI tool that a user is going to use, most of these tools are pretty straightforward. They don't seem that complex, but it really does help to understand what is the capability of each one of these tools, right? Are there any limitations of these tools? And when you have a partner like Cognizant working with us, they can come in and they can actually run workshops or enablement sessions. So not even just doing all the engineering work, but sitting down with your team of developers and showing them how to get the most out of something like Gemini Code Assist or a similar tool. And I think that's really valuable because like I said, these tools aren't necessarily that complex to use as a user, but there are ways to use them more efficiently and to get the most out of them. So everything from, helping identifying how do we solve your problem together to implementing a solution and then making sure that your teams understand, how to get the most out of that solution is really important. And I think it's one of the biggest values that we can get from a partner like Cognizant.
Yeah, and adoption is key, right? Because you can have all of the tools, but if nobody uses them, then
Yep,
our metrics won't show the benefits and the ROI. So
exactly.
adoption is just like data, right? Data's king, adoption's king. So.
All right. Thank you both. That brings us to the end of our session. Thank you so much for being here with us. I really enjoyed the conversation. And thanks to our speakers for sharing their time and insights. Tia Eady from Cognizant and John Bacon from Google. If you'd like to dig deeper, be sure to check out the resources on your screen. And thanks again for tuning in. On behalf of Cognizant, Google, and CIO, I'm Barbara Call.